It's 2:14 in the morning. The room is dark. The house is quiet. And somehow, that's exactly when your brain decides to get loud. You replay a conversation from 6 hours ago. Not even a fight, just a moment where you paused a little too long before answering. You hear your own voice in your head, rewording what you should have said. Then your brain jumps. Rent, that email you forgot to send, a look someone gave you at lunch that you can't quite decode. You flip the pillow to the cold side. You check the time, 2:27. You calculate how many hours of sleep you'll get if you fall asleep right now. And somehow, doing that math makes it worse. You're not overthinking. Most people hear that word, overthinking, and they accept it. They say, yeah, my brain just does that. As if it's a personality trait. As if some people are thinkers and some people are sleepers, and you just lost that coin flip. But here's what no one tells you. What's happening at 2 a.m. is not the same thing as what happens when you weigh pros and cons at your desk. It's not the same mental process. It's not even the same part of your brain. What's happening at 2 a.m. is a neurological event, a very specific collision between your body's stress system, your emotional brain, and a quirk in how your mind handles unfinished business. And once you understand the actual mechanics behind it, you stop trying to think your way out of thinking, because that was never going to work. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 reasons your brain gets loudest in the middle of the night, each one backed by real neuroscience. And the last one might change how you see every sleepless night you've ever had. Let's get into it. Number 1, your stress hormone is spiking when it's supposed to be dropping. Here's a scene most people don't realize is a chemical event. You had a normal day. Nothing terrible happened. Maybe a little stressful, maybe a tense meeting, but nothing dramatic. You came home, watched something, brushed your teeth. You felt fine. Then you got into bed. And within 20 minutes, your chest feels tight, your jaw's clenched, and thoughts you hadn't thought about all day suddenly rush in like they were waiting behind a door. This isn't random. Your body runs on something called the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and its job is to regulate cortisol, your primary stress hormone. In a healthy rhythm, cortisol peaks in the early morning to wake you up, then gradually drops throughout the day, reaching its lowest point around midnight. But when you've been under chronic stress, even low-grade background stress, that rhythm gets disrupted. Cortisol doesn't drop the way it should. Sometimes it even spikes again in the late evening. So you feel calm all day because your brain was busy, distracted, occupied. Then you lie down. The distractions disappear, and you're left alone with a body that's chemically wired for alertness at the exact moment you need rest. It's not that your mind suddenly decided to worry. It's that your body was already worried, and you just finally got quiet enough to notice. Number 2, your rational brain goes offline, and your emotional brain takes the wheel. Picture this. During the day, you get a slightly passive-aggressive text from a coworker. You read it, shrug, and think, they're probably just having a bad day. You move on. That same text at 2 a.m., it becomes evidence that they've never respected you, that no one at work actually likes you, that you've been fooling yourself for months. Same text, same words, completely different meaning. This isn't you being dramatic. This is your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thought, perspective taking, and emotional regulation, going dim. As you move towards sleep, prefrontal activity naturally decreases. That's by design. Your brain is supposed to quiet that region so you can transition into rest. But here's the problem. Your amygdala, the part of your brain that processes fear, threat, and emotional intensity, doesn't follow the same schedule. Researchers in the field of affective neuroscience have found that when the prefrontal cortex reduces its activity, the amygdala becomes relatively more dominant. Not because it gets louder, but because the thing that was keeping it in check goes quiet. Think of it like this. During the day, you have a security guard and a fire alarm. The security guard, your prefrontal cortex, hears the alarm, checks the building, and says, false alarm, just someone making toast. At 2 a.m., the security guard goes home. The alarm still rings, and now there's no one to say, it's just toast. That's why a small worry during the day becomes a catastrophe at night. Not because the worry changed, but because the part of your brain that provides context is no longer available. Number 3, your brain can't let go of things that aren't finished. There's a specific kind of 2 a.m. thought that drives people crazy. It's not about the future. It's not about fear. It's about something you didn't complete. An email you started but didn't send. A conversation that ended mid-sentence because someone walked into the room. A decision you said you'd make tomorrow, 3 tomorrows ago. You might have forgotten about these things entirely during the day, but the moment your head hits the pillow, they come back. Not gently. They come back with urgency, as if your brain is shaking you by the shoulders, saying, "We never finished this." This is a well-documented phenomenon in psychology called the Zeigarnik effect. It was first observed in the 1920s when a psychologist noticed that waiters could remember complex orders, but only until the order was served. Once the task was complete, the memory dissolved. Unfinished tasks, however, stayed active in working memory, demanding attention. Your brain treats incomplete tasks like open browser tabs. Each one takes up processing power. And at 2 a.m., when every other tab is closed, when there are no new inputs, no new distractions, no new stimulation, those unfinished tabs are all that's left on the screen. Not because they're important, but because they're unresolved. Your brain doesn't rank by importance. It ranks by completion, and anything left open keeps pinging. Number 4, your body is mistaking silence for danger. This one surprises people. You're lying still. The room is dark, there's no sound, and suddenly, your heart beats a little harder. Your breathing gets shallow. You feel a tightness in your stomach that has no obvious cause. You search your mind for a reason. Why am I anxious? And because your brain hates unanswered questions, it finds one. It picks a thought, any thought, and attaches the feeling to it. Now you're not just physically uncomfortable, you're worried about money, or your health, or your relationship. But here's what actually happened. The thought didn't cause the feeling. The feeling came first, and your brain invented a story to explain it. This process is connected to something called interoception, your brain's ability to sense what's happening inside your body. Heart rate, breathing, muscle tension, gut signals. When your sympathetic nervous system is slightly activated, which happens easily after a stressful day, your body sends subtle signals of arousal. Not emotional arousal, physiological arousal. Your nervous system is still running a little hot. During the day, you don't notice because there's too much external input. But at 2 a.m., in the silence, your brain turns its attention inward. It detects these signals. And because the prefrontal cortex is already dimming, remember, the security guard went home, your brain can't accurately interpret them. So it does the next best thing. It guesses. And it almost always guesses danger. Not because you're in danger, but because your brain evolved to err on the side of caution. A false alarm is annoying. Missing a real threat is fatal. So your brain would rather scare you 100 times over nothing than miss the one time it matters. Now let's pause for a moment. Look at what's actually happening at 2 a.m. Your cortisol is running off schedule. Your rational brain is powering down. Your emotional brain is unsupervised. Your mind is looping on unfinished tasks. And your body is sending danger signals in a quiet room. This isn't a character flaw. This isn't just the way you are. This is a very specific set of biological processes colliding at the worst possible time. And understanding that changes something. Because you stop blaming yourself for not being able to just relax. But there's one more thing happening, and it's the one most people never hear about, the one that reframes everything. Number 5, your brain isn't thinking, it's scanning. This is the part that changes it all. When you're lying awake at 2 a.m., it feels like you're thinking. It feels like your brain is working on a problem, chewing through scenarios, trying to find an answer. But if you pay close attention, really close attention, you'll notice something strange. You're not actually solving anything. You're not reaching conclusions. You're not making plans. You're circling, The same worries, the same scenes, the same unanswerable questions, over and over in a loop that never lands. That's because what you're experiencing isn't thinking. It's your default mode network running a threat scan. The default mode network, or DMN, is a collection of brain regions that activates when you're not focused on any external task. It's the network that runs during daydreaming, self-reflection, and mind-wandering. Psychologists and neuroscientists sometimes describe it as your brain's background mode. During the day, it hums quietly. You slip in and out of it between tasks. It helps you process memories, imagine future scenarios, and reflect on your sense of self. But at night, when every other network shuts down, when there's nothing to focus on, nothing to do, nothing external to process, the default mode network doesn't just hum, it takes over. And here's the critical part. The DMN has a strong connection to brain regions involved in self-referential processing and emotional memory. When it runs without the balancing influence of the prefrontal cortex, it doesn't daydream peacefully. It scans for threats. It reviews social interactions for signs of rejection. It replays past mistakes. It projects worst-case futures. Not because you asked it to, but because that's what it was built to do when left unsupervised. Think of it as a smoke detector. During the day, the windows are open, there's a breeze, and the detector sits quietly on the ceiling. At night, the house is sealed, the air is still, and the detector picks up every trace of anything. The faintest residue from dinner, a candle blown out hours ago, and it can't tell the difference between that and an actual fire. So it goes off. That's your 2 a.m. brain. It's not broken, it's not weak. It's a smoke detector in a sealed room, doing exactly what it was designed to do, just in conditions it wasn't designed for. And here's where the shift happens. Because once you see this for what it is, a detection system, not a thinking system, you stop trying to outthink it. You stop lying in bed arguing with your own thoughts, as if they're making logical claims that need logical responses. They're not claims, they're pings. They're a smoke detector saying, I detected something. You don't argue with a smoke detector, you open a window. And that's the reframe. The answer to 2 a.m. isn't to think harder. It isn't to journal your way through every thought until it surrenders. It's to change the conditions. Move your body, even just standing up for 2 minutes. Give your brain a single, low-stakes external focus, a texture, a sound, a specific counting pattern. Write the unfinished thing down, not to solve it, but to tell your brain, I've logged this. You can stop pinging. You're not fighting your brain. You're updating its input. Remember that moment at the beginning? 2:14 in the morning. The cold side of the pillow. The mental math about how many hours you'd get if you fell asleep right now. That moment isn't a failure. It's a smoke detector in a sealed room. And now you know something most people don't. You know why the alarm rings. You know it's not because there's a fire. And you know how to open the window. The next time you're staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., don't ask yourself, why can't I stop thinking? Ask instead, what is my brain scanning for? And how do I tell it that it's safe? That question changes everything. If this made something click for you, subscribe. I make videos that turn the confusing parts of being human into something that finally makes sense. And leave me a comment. I'm curious. Does your brain get loudest at 2 a.m.? Or is there a different hour it won't let you rest? I'll see you in the next one.